In this segment, I share with you some considerations to bear in mind as you begin to set in motion your regular mindfulness practice, setting you up for success. I'm looking forward to working with you as you start your mindfulness practice journey, or perhaps take it to the next level. You know, many people will practice mindfulness because of what it offers them in the long term, in their lives personally and professionally. And many will also find that the period of practice itself, the time that's carved out on a regular basis, can be very meaningful and satisfying for a variety of reasons. So what I'd like to do is to share with you some considerations as you begin to consider what time you'll be practicing and where you'll be practicing, that anticipate some of the challenges that are frequently experienced, so that you're able to really minimize those considerations getting in the way and really set yourself up for success. So, time, place, and manner. As for time, when will you practice? What time of day will you practice? And have it be a time that's practical. You know, it might be very available, 4 o'clock in the morning, but it might not be very practical. And so you know you better than anybody else. If you're going to be practicing ideally at the same time each day, that's not necessary, but it's very helpful for setting it in motion, having it be sustaining, and really serving you well for the long term. When would that be? Be attentive to others. You know, don't choose a time where you're going to be sitting in a room where other people are coming and going and feeling like they have to step around you, or you'll be frustrated that that's in fact happening. If people are already in the kitchen at a certain time or in the living room or watching TV, and that's what they've been doing for a while, well, you know, you're the one that's changing your habit a little bit, changing the routine. And so do so in a way that is really sensitive to and accommodating of them, but also let them know, I'll be doing this practice at this particular time, and I just want to make sure that that's okay. I want you to understand what I'll be doing. I want you to understand the duration so that you know it's not going to be, you know, endless. And check in with them and see that that works for, you know, everyone. A strong suggestion is you pick that time and you start, you know, getting things going earlier than later. And there's a variety of reasons for that. One is it's tried and true. Myself and many others have found that practicing early in the morning is very helpful. You roll out of bed, you get in a chair or onto the cushion and practice, or after you sort of freshen up, you get into the chair or on a cushion and practice. Or if you have something that you're already doing in the morning, like exercise, after the exercise, you then will do the practice. Early has its charms. One of them is that you're more likely to remember it. The later in the day that you begin to practice, especially early on as you're beginning to establish the habit of practice, you're more likely to forget, and or something may come along that disrupts it and pushes it back, and maybe it just doesn't end up happening. You also are able to gather data. It's very interesting to practice in the morning and then see what effects, short-term effects, that practice may have in terms of what it's like in traffic, what it's like when you're interacting with others, sort of, you know, what your mental state is as you embark on the day, and how the day might be a little different as a result of it. The later in the day that you practice, the less of an opportunity you have to gather that sort of data. But ultimately, you are in charge. So draw upon these in ways that they may be helpful, especially the earlier in the day part, because a lot of people do prefer to practice later in the day, but some of them start with that. And I want to encourage you to start early and then migrate in that direction if that's what in fact happens. But you are in charge, so do what makes the most sense to you and what's best for you. Place. Where are you going to practice? Practice somewhere convenient. For most of us, this is going to be at home. And find a convenient location in the home. So you may have a large home, you may have a few rooms, whatever it is, where is it that it's most convenient for you? Meaning, if it's far away, you may not think about it, it may not cross your mind, and so what can you do so that if that is the location you choose, that room off in the far corner, you don't forget about it? And of course, the more likely you are to pass it on a regular basis, the more likely you are to remember it, but the closer it is to sort of where everyone's walking, the noisier it might be. So that's for you to figure out. That's sort of the fun of it. A place that's convenient, that's reliably available to you, so that if you're doing it at a certain time each day, that place is available to you where you're attentive to other people, and it's not any unnecessary frustration or difficulties that are being added on. A place that's conducive to practice. As a general rule, just quieter. than it might otherwise be. And ideally not at the desk where you do your work, not at the table where you're eating. There's so many cues that we have that have been baked into sort of our conditioning for years of being there, and we want to maybe try to find a place that's a little different. So at the very least, if you are going to be at a chair or at a table or somewhere that you normally find yourself, maybe use a different chair, maybe clear off some of the books, maybe bring something and introduce it like a picture or a candle or something that sort of establishes that this is a little different than the way you normally are in this location. In addition to place, we have manner. There's a lot to be said for manner, but we'll explore in particular what will you be sitting on? A chair, a cushion. There are also other alternatives like a bench, a backjack. And so the two most common are a chair and a cushion. Now we'll certainly be doing a lot of practicing in chairs. We'll practice in chairs when we're together most of the time, and when you do practices during the day at work and at home even, you will oftentimes find yourself in a chair. So chair works well. I'll say something in a moment about the chair because that can make a difference. But cushion is also interesting. So if you have or you've been interested in getting a cushion, there are meditation cushions. They don't necessarily have to cost a lot. They can be a little different. Where you place them can create a slightly different mood or feel, which can be helpful, and it can also be very conducive to the spine and also to sort of holding yourself upright for the period of practice as opposed to laying back and sort of dozing off. Now as it relates to a chair, it's important to have it where the chair really has a flat bottom and a flat back. Why? Because if the back is sort of leaning back, as many chairs will do, or reclined, you're more likely to fall asleep, or it's just a less steady position. And similarly, if the seat of the chair is contoured, again, you're more likely to sort of sink into it. And so the best chair in many ways is the kind of chair that's very flat, so that you're able to have your posture be in a better place for sitting for a little bit of time. All of our practices will be 6, 12, 18, or 24 minutes, so they're moderately short to moderately long, but in a very moderate zone. And sitting on a chair, even if it's not the perfect chair, will be fine. Less ideal is a sofa or something where you really are sinking into it, but anything can work. So we don't want the manner in which we practice to get in the way or in some way preclude practice, but we can set ourselves up for a more comfortable and sustainable practice. And what we're sitting on is part of that. And then just in general, when you're practicing, give thought to having your computer off, emails not coming in, cell phone in a different room, just establishing the conditions, closing the door, having a note on the door that says, I'm practicing, and letting people know when you'll finish practicing. I'm practicing is sort of very open-ended, practicing from 8 to 8:15 or 8 to 8:12. That can be very helpful. All right, I look forward to exploring the practice itself and to considering some of these from your own direct experience, and look forward to seeing you. I hope this is helpful. Wishing you all the best.